Welcome to Art Talk. I'm Laura Womack, and Jen McHugh is our technical director.
Hi, everyone.
Tonight we're talking with artist James Fiorentino of Hunterdon County, New Jersey. James is known nationally for his amazing ability to capture likenesses of people. He first became known for his portraits of sports figures like baseball greats Jackie Robinson and Derek Jeter. He's done striking portraits of many of our recent presidents, the Pope, even Elvis. He's also turned his exacting observation to wildlife, creating incredible pictures of bears, cheetahs, owls, portraits that look as if these wild creatures sat patiently still for several modeling sessions. James is the youngest artist ever inducted into the prestigious New York Society of Illustrators. His award-winning art is in museums, galleries, and private collections across the globe, and his story has been told on national television and in the pages of magazines and newspapers. The Society of Animal Artists exhibited many of his paintings in the prestigious Animal and Art Show. His Black Vulture was published in the Society of Illustrators annual exhibition. One of his paintings was jury selected for the highly regarded 2014 America's Parks exhibit. James's art has been chosen for the Artists for Conservation Annual International Show many times, winning an Award of Excellence in 2017, and he has an ongoing traveling exhibition, Rare Wildlife Revealed, in partnership with the Conserve Wildlife Foundation. James is a signature member of the Society of Animal Artists and Artists for Conservation, in addition to the American Watercolor Society, the National Watercolor Society, Garden State Watercolor Society, New Jersey Watercolor Society, and the Salmagundi Club. He also serves as a trustee for the Raptor Trust and the DNR Greenway Land Trust. Boy, James, we could go on, but right now we're just really delighted to welcome you to Art Talk.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
And thanks to all of you in the audience for joining us. We really would love to get to your questions for James, so please put them in the Q&A. And now we will go right to some of your artwork, James. What do you got for us, Jen? There we go. Tell us about this. This is like an action photo, James.
Yeah, so, this is something I've been doing. We were just talking earlier, since I was a kid. Essentially, I still get to paint what I love, and I've been doing that since I was younger, and sports being one of the things that I had a passion for since I was a kid and playing. And so in this case, like this Tom Brady, I'll work with different players and teams and a lot of paintings like this would be for private clients. This sort of illustration that I do kind of goes also into the collectible side of things. Obviously, I have works where I'm painting landscapes and ordinary life people and plein air stuff, but this is more along the lines of what like a lot of big high-end collectors will collect. And in this case, Tom Brady had autographed the original watercolor painting. All the work you'll see today is all my watercolor, which I'm the most well known for, but I've worked in a lot of mediums throughout my life.
This is incredible. So it looks like a photo. We often ask our artists, do you work from photos?
Yeah, so especially for sports and these guys that are, I have to be very detailed. I'll, come up with ideas and sketches. But yes, working from different images and certainly selecting different ways to showcase them and colors and things like that. But photography plays a big role in what I'm trying to paint and draw, even the photos that I take. And because I am so detailed with everything that I do.
So here, I mean, looking at his expression, you've really captured the concentration in his eyes. That sort of, even in his mouth, you can see like he's not posing. This guy is really looking at what where he's going to throw that football.
Yeah, I think certainly being an athlete and just, playing at a certain level, just playing sports my whole life, I think definitely allows me to have a good feel for what I'm painting or drawing or what I want to see. Um, I do think whether it's a painting of an athlete or it's a painting of a hawk or it's a person, and whether it's my kids or someone I don't know, you're really just trying to evoke like um this sense of who the person is, this detail and grit in the person, but really like, just feeling, you want to see the feeling in the artwork. So that's what I'm really trying to do. For whatever the reason, I always felt watercolor was the best for me to do that. And again, my brain sort of works like a photo, which is, I like being very tight. Certainly you could see a lot of the brushstrokes when you see my work up close. Some of the other paintings, like my landscapes and wildlife, probably showcase that a little more at times, but I've just always loved being very photorealistic since I was little.
All right, let's take another, let's see the next picture. And then I'd love to talk about your approach to photorealism. First of all, well, let's talk about this great picture. Again, the expression on his face is
Yeah. This is Peyton Manning. So yeah, it's just again another really cool piece to do for like a client. And again, it's for my sports stuff. It could be like this year, which I think maybe in some of the pictures, like whether I'm being commissioned by the Baseball Hall of Fame or a trading card company or the player themselves, or for a painting that's being presented to a player. So it sort of runs the gamut of all those types of things. But again, it's like any kind of painting. Like those two particular paintings are around 22 by 30 inches. So they're somewhat larger for watercolor paintings. I've done paintings bigger, of course, but yeah, it's all about color and again detail and all those things for me.
so photorealism and watercolor. That to me, as a layperson, seems, paradoxical.
Yeah, so I love all watercolor and I love traditional watercolor. I love loose watercolor. Um, for whatever the reason, and this goes back to when I first started. Like I was taking art lessons at 8 and was learning all the mediums. And the two women I studied with painted in watercolor, and they were sort of tight. I don't think they were quite as tight as I am, but I think that's probably what you know had me paint in this way, or and obviously like working at home and having a self-taught way of doing it. I almost paint watercolor like it's oil or acrylic in a way. And when people see my work, the non-sport stuff, because all my other works that are in museums and galleries are obviously a lot of it's non-sport stuff. Um, Whether it's a professional, another watercolor painter will be shocked that it's just watercolor. Sometimes there'll be gouache used in backgrounds, but 99% of my paintings just all watercolor. And I just again, it's like I tell people it's not the right way, of course, it's just the way that I paint it.
So how do you keep it so tight with watercolor?
Well, I to get technical again, it's like years and years of doing it, but like right now I use a 300-pound hot press paper. So I used to use Lana, and now I use Fabriano paper, Italian paper, and I've always used hot press, and I use a 300-pound weight. So in my process, after I sketch something out, or even if I'm not sketching something out, um, it's a lot of dry brush. It is a lot of water at times too. I'm scraping away a lot of the paper. So I feel like if somebody was like doing this for the first time, they would probably give up or think they're messing up. I just have had the experience of having the paper rip up, letting it dry, having it rip up, a lot of dry brush. Um, I use all different paints. Again, it's like a mad scientist type of thing, but I'll use cake form watercolors. I'll use out of the tube like Winsor Newton. I use some French paints, honey based paints. I'll use some German paints. And like, every color, as artists know, work differently, right? So if I'm using titanium white, it's behaves different than Chinese white. This color behaves differently. I'll use this form and that form. And it's just a way of me being able to get all that thickness and tightness and detail and dry brush, and that's basically what you see there.
So you're actually ripping up the paper?
Yeah, yeah, the paper will actually come off in little pieces, little chunks.
So is it a very if I were to close up on this Peyton Manning
Hmm.
picture, would it look very textural?
That's a good question. In some spots you could, I'm sure if you went like right up and saw some of the facial spots, or depending on where I'm doing that, you would definitely see that. And you definitely can see brush strokes in painting. again, not generally for the sports paintings, but I'll use other ways of achieving certain textures in the artwork. So if I was painting a tree, sometimes I'll use paper towel, and I'll use a little bit of paper towel with my paint to get that special texture, and like just all different things. You're just, years and years of doing it, things just come to you, things happen by accident. And then those are just like anything, whether you're, again, if we attribute it to music or sports, you're learning your way in your process of doing by just experimenting and painting all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's take a look at the next picture up, Jen. It's incredible. Then we'll go to the Q&A. Thank you all for putting your questions in the Q&A. This is incredible.
Thanks. Yeah. Again, it's just if I am the kind of person that the more detail I have, whether again it's a portrait or a sports painting or a landscape or nature, I love it. There's definitely times where I want to be loose and be a little more abstract in paintings. But and then in this case, like I know Michael Strahan, so from a completely different part of what I do, obviously, like I was mentioning, I become friendly with these guys. So Michael actually has this in his home, and so yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, I get to meet these guys and be able to do pieces like this.
That's awesome. So how do you get to meet these guys?
I think it's just like years and years of doing it, and you know people who know them, agents, events. I've gone to collectible shows where a lot of these guys do signings or charity events, and then like I was mentioning, just years and years of being around everybody, you just get to know guys, get to meet them. A lot of stuff is done for charities where I raise a lot of money through my artwork, and I love doing that and helping out people. So, and that's a very important thing to me.
Yeah, you're really community involved. Okay, well, let's take some of those questions. Jen's going to help us with that.
Okay. First, I have to comment, I can't even believe all the detail in that helmet with the screws and you can see the reflection and the warning. I mean, I'm impressed. I'm amazed.
Yes.
Deanna has a question. She said, what size are most of your pieces?
Yeah. So it's a good question. I mean, probably the average range is 16 by 20 to 22 by 30, but I do paint at times larger. I'll paint 30 by 40-inch big paintings, and I'll paint very small at times too. So like whether it's the sports side of it or my nature, I'll even do 8 by 10, 5 by 7 small paintings. So it really ranges, but the average is probably 16 by 20 to 22 by 30.
Okay.
Deanna also asked, why watercolor instead of oil or acrylic?
Um, and I've painted in all of it. So again, growing up, I started out doing what everybody would learn and sketching and charcoal and pastels and oils and acrylic. I did like oils, but in all honesty, maybe I joked around. I said maybe because it's like messy and smells, and I was like, looking for something quick. I mean, I do think watercolors, I would argue it's probably the hardest, most challenging medium because you can't make mistakes really, and you have to be quick. But I like being quick, and I just fell in love with the look. Like I was mentioning before, I was probably influenced by the two women I studied who were, well-known New Jersey watercolor artists, and yeah, for whatever the reason, it was just something that gravitated towards me. And then when I was in college, I painted in every medium. I painted, which I would love to get back to, large oil paintings, 5 feet by 6 feet, mixed media, oil acrylic, very neo-expressionism, cartoon imagery, nothing like I paint now. You wouldn't even know it's mine. Very Basquiat, Carol Dunham, Francesco Clemente kind of work. And I loved it. I think it's probably some of the best art I've ever done. It's completely the opposite of what I do now, and sculptures and things. So in the end, I'm an artist, right? I'm an artist. I could paint anyway and paint anything, but I'm true to myself. And I was an athlete. So I love painting sports paintings, still do, but I also love painting everyday life. So, and for whatever the reason, watercolor for me, and as good as people say I am or what I've received, I still think I can get better and better and better. And I keep learning more. So, but watercolor, for whatever reason, is just something I love to do.
I mean, so what happened to those pictures that you did in college that were, neo-expressionism, you said, right?
Yeah, they're here. So I have some hanging in the house. So some people that come in see them. I sold some back then, and I have a lot in the garage and downstairs, and I'll probably go back to working on them at some point. And that I probably should actually post some of them on
Yeah.
social media, because in all honesty, that's like the illustration, the sports stuff is, I get paid for it. It's a job. Sometimes I do get very excited about it when I'm doing some of them for players and events and being commissioned, but it is a job. I love if I have the opportunity to paint more landscapes and life and things that are very meaningful to me and my children, or, I took a beautiful photograph in Cape May of this incredible house in front of the house, and I'm going to paint that soon. And it had these really old, intricate, like horse kind of sculptures on the house. So I have a lot of images I've photographed over the last 20 years that I haven't even had a chance to get to. So things that are very meaningful to me now, I want to do more of that. But the neo expression stuff I may get to also one day. It really has to come from my soul. At that time in my life, it was like a great time to do all that and experiment and paint in that way. And I look back, and it's probably about the most true I could ever be as an artist painting wise. So it was kind of exciting.
All right, cool. Let's see another picture and then go back to the Q&A.
Yep. So that's a good example of something I just completed now. That's a piece that the National Baseball Hall of Fame had asked me to do. That is the induction cover for their yearbook. And that original watercolor, which is probably, I'm going to say like, I mean, like the way we frame it is probably like in the 24 by 24 inches kind of size. That original is now hanging in the Hall of Fame in their induction room for this year. And that's really exciting for me because, again, my boys play baseball. I love baseball. I played baseball in college. For me, baseball is still just a passion. And to be able to paint these players who have had the most incredible lives and careers in their biggest moments of their lives, to paint them on the cover of the yearbook, it's still a big thrill for me. I've had the chance to meet two of these guys already, and we'll probably meet the other two. Dick Allen had passed away. So it's a real honor for me. It's very exciting. It's exciting for my boys to see me doing that kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, I still have a thrill, being able to do it.
Yeah, I was going to say you're probably one of the few fathers in America whose boys think their job is cool.
Right. They are, yeah, definitely. And they're lucky, and they do appreciate it because they do get to be around some amazing people, even non-sport people, even the wildlife side of it, see some really do incredible things with me from nature, the nature side of my art. So yeah, it's nice to be able to do that.
That's cool. All right, Jen, let's have a few more questions, please.
Okay, these are some technical ones, so I might put something back up. Jim Feld wants to know, how do you get white over the color? Some I see as white of stock, but white over color?
So some white you'll see on some painting, especially my black and white, is just the paper. So like when I'm painting my black and whites, for example, I'm really just using black. I'll only use white out of the tube for some highlights here and there, but I'm using, you know, for most of these paintings, all like titanium white out of the tube, Winsor Newton, to mix with all the other colors. And that's how I'm getting that thick, you know, style of the watercolor. Because obviously you got the opaque form, translucent form, and I'll actually do both of them throughout paintings, but most of it's all like the opaque look where you're getting that almost like acrylic look to it. And I scrape away, like I was mentioning, and I lay it on thick at times. The dry brush effect obviously gives a lot of that. So
So it's almost like you're using watercolor like oil, is that?
yeah, all by accident. Again, it's just the way I paint. I tell people it's, obviously everybody has, I know artists who are really successful illustrators who paint oils like watercolor. Some of the greats like Bart Forbes and Bernie Fuchs. paint that way. Just incredible oil paintings, but very watercolor like. But anytime I get to paint like in that, like the fur and the trees and the bark and those kind of things, I'll lay it on thick a little bit like that. So
Interesting. That's fascinating. Not what I would have expected at all from watercolor. Jen, how about some more Q&A?
Okay, Kathy wants to know what brand of watercolors do you use?
all right, so this is where people will laugh and it's kind of nutty. I almost have to probably go get it. So I forget the name of the German paint I'm using out of the cake form. The French, I can't even pronounce it. The French paint is that honey based paint, which I'm sure everybody knows. And I can't pronounce it, but it's a honey based paint that actually I think I got a sample of it literally at like American Watercolor Society and tried it out and loved it. And then Winsor & Newton is most of my other paints, which is all like, tube form. So I use, like I was mentioned before, the cake form and the tube form of my paint. So mixing over and over again and, between both of them.
Cool.
So a lot of it's by accident. It's not, you know,
But
sometimes I don't even know what I'm doing, I feel like.
well, I think we should explore that by accident. I mean, um, what does that mean exactly? Because you obviously have a deep knowledge of your materials and what you're using, and you've been doing this. I mean, you started really doing art on your own when you were quite young. So,
Yeah, I think honestly, some of my watercolor paintings at 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 are pretty good. I think by the time I was probably like 13, 14, I was painting, kind of almost on a professional level, I would say. No, I think it's just experimental, honestly. I think it's by accident because you're constantly using things, you're trial by error, you're making mistakes, you figure out why it's a mistake, why that's good, why that color's good, why that's not good. And I think over time things change too. I never used a honey-based paint, maybe the last 5 years. The paper changes, the paper's a big deal. I recognized when I was using the Lana paper, French paper, and I was painting with it for years. I One day I'm painting it and it's not behaving the right way. It's like bubbling, it's acting weird. I'm like, this is weird. I'm wondering if this is like a bad batch. Am I doing something different? And I then realized that they told me that the mill had changed in France. So then I didn't like the way it was behaving, and I found the Fabriano Italian paper. So again, it's like everybody just kind of finds their way and how they're doing stuff. That's why I love all different types of art and artists. And honestly, not just to kind of say this, but that's why I love the Mill Show, because it's all types of art. And I love seeing everyone's technique and everyone's style. Everybody has their different way of painting. That's the whole point. Like, you want to distinguish yourself from everybody else and just appreciate how people do things and why they do it. So it's one of the reasons why I love the show so much too, is because you see all that different style. Like I said, I could see a watercolor painting could be loose, completely loose, and it's absolutely gorgeous to me and beautiful. I probably wouldn't paint that way because I'm just not used to it. Or maybe if I'm doing plein air and I'm doing something quick, I would. But my brain's wired to be a little more detailed, a little more fast, maybe a little more dry brush, maybe a little more scratching. That's just the way I do it.
well, we really appreciate you saying that about the Phillips Mill show. We love it too, obviously. And there's a great show up now, which is very different from what we normally have in. It's the Selma Burke Invitational African American Art Show, and it's pretty amazing. It's very different. So I recommend that to you. But I'm not quite ready to let go of this accident. Do you have accidents? I mean, you make it sound like accidents are a good thing, and I can see how they would be, but do you ever throw something out and say this just isn't working? Does that happen very often?
It does happen, but not very often. I think sometimes I could be challenging when I'm sketching. If I don't, I mean, obviously, when you're painting a landscape, no one knows. When you're drawing an animal, no one, you don't know. It's not like painting Michael Strahan, you know what I mean? So certainly drawing portraits of famous people, you have to be pretty accurate. And I definitely mess up a lot. It takes me sometimes a long time to do the sketches. So that's the hardest part. The painting part for me is actually easy just because I feel like I've done it for so long. That's not a challenge. It's just drawing can be challenging. And like, could I make a mistake painting wise? Maybe, but not a lot of time. I cover so two things I could also tell you, like I cover my artwork. So it's if I ever drop something or splattered something, it's not getting on it. Um, and I also paint in my studio in my home in the dark, pretty much casting shadows on my paper. And so I have no natural light coming in there for my paintings. It's all dark. I draw paint flat, little angle. And I was taught when I was young to cast shadows on it, which just helps me when I'm painting. And that's just the way I was taught and the way I do it. Again, it has nothing to do with being right or wrong. It's just the way I felt like I learned when I was younger and stuck with it.
Wow, that's fascinating. Okay, very good. All right, Jen, let's get back to those questions. And oh, by the way, Jen did find the honey-based paint. It's Sennelier.
Yes, that's it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Jen is great. We always appreciate that.
I didn't want to pronounce it wrong because then I look very dumb if I if I say the wrong pronunciation of it. So
I don't know what I'm saying, James. I just made it up and just tried to play it off.
yep.
Well, it sounds good. Sounds
Yep.
sounds authentic. But I have to give
Confident.
some credit to Frank Heron too. He also said
Ah,
that.
very good. Very good.
And our last question is from Frank, and he wants to know, where did you get your training, James?
So the watercolor, like I was saying, really was only from a time period from about 8 to, I'm gonna say 8 to 13, 14 years old, and they were just private art lessons. When I first started, it was with like a group of mostly older kids and adults. And then I switched to another teacher. I grew up in Middlesex, New Jersey. So these teachers were in that Middlesex County area. Again, they were watercolor, probably like New Jersey watercolor artists. And then I was just doing it at home. My grandmother also painted. Um, and she painted more honestly like Grandma Moses kind of folk arty oil paintings. And I would paint with her sometimes. But honestly, my training was really with those two women for that small time period, and the rest was just me doing everything on my own, painting every day, all different types of mediums, like I said, besides watercolor throughout those times and in high school. And then really my next real teacher from when I was probably 14 wasn't until I had my main painting teacher in college, who was an incredible painter out of Utah. Happened to be actually a big sports fan too, but painted beautiful landscapes. And when I was in college, I was only doing my watercolors in my dorm room for my work and my commissions and stuff and for fun. I was doing all other types of art and learning all. It was mostly plein air work, was mostly oil paintings and sculpture and things like that. So a lot of it really was kind of self-taught.
Yes. Well, that's incredible. Let's look at some of those nature pictures that you were referencing. We'll give Jen a minute to pull those up. I've got this. There we go.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just like obviously I love painting paintings where sometimes it's just a white background. Sounds simple and silly, but it's sometimes the most beautiful. Obviously I'm inspired by what's around us. We have so many deer in our yard and bucks are just gorgeous. Um, and this is another great example of being able to really scratch and pull and use dry brush for the hair and the detail. This painting, I believe this was in the Society of Animal Artists show, and I think this one may have been in like the music, like the Bennington Museum in Vermont. I think the Society of Animal Artists is really an incredible group. I recommend it to anyone who loves painting nature and wildlife. Those shows are in different museums throughout the country every year, depending on where they're having it. So yeah, this is like I love painting this. And the original watercolor, it's all watercolor, was probably I'm gonna say around 16 by 18 or 18 by 18, around that size. So
Yeah. I mean, it's really, again, this is pretty incredible. It's like photorealism here. And again, I'm astonished by the fact that it's watercolor. And bear with me here a little bit, James. And again, I can say these ridiculous things because I'm not an artist. I'm a layperson. But I'm looking at this fur on this buck, and I'm thinking about years ago, somebody told me that, if you do those wall treatments, that were really popular a while back. And if you're not paying attention, when you go from one side to the other, you're like losing track and the pattern changes and you have to be really careful. And the kind of focus you need to be able to do this level of detail, how do you zoom in and zoom back out? And, you're working on this very small square of fur, and
Yeah.
yet you've got to keep in mind the whole picture. It just seems like a mental trick as well as a
Yeah,
skill.
I'm not sure. Again, sometimes in your self-taught, you probably do things that are wrong to some people, sometimes right, sometimes different. Like when I would be starting to paint this out, I'd probably just be doing a lot of water and very light, like a yellow ochre. Then I'd go in with some blues and grays and some browns, all light wash. I'd wash it for hours and hours and hours, wash, all around everywhere. Probably wouldn't work on the antlers yet. And then I'd go in with some of the white and the thicker white and start mixing it in, start dry brushing it in, start bringing the colors back in, start getting it all to mesh together very tightly. The paper be ripping up, and I'd be waiting for that to dry. And then eventually, in the end, you're going in with little tiny brushes and detail and picking it from different angles. And I mean, that's like me going fast forward. And to give more detail on something like this, this would probably, let's say I'm working on a 9 to 5 type of situation. I'm not painting obviously every minute and every hour, but this would take me, let's see, like maybe 4 or 5 days or something. It's hard to say. It could be faster, but again, you got to work fast on watercolor, which I like. But it's just basically kind of doing all that, and I love these types of colors too. So I love painting animals like this. So you're obviously gravitating towards things that you're excited about as an artist. Like I can tell, that I'm going to paint something really beautiful and something I want to work on. Like the photo I took of this Cape May image, and I have some cool owl pictures I took that I want to work on. Like I already know, I'm pretty confident it's going to be a really cool piece that I'm going to enjoy. So um, you know, and that's the vision of it.
Cool. Next up, Jen.
Yeah, this is a coyote. This again, same, basically similar to the buck, same premise and reason. Obviously, this is more horizontal and all those kind of things. Obviously, artists know the size, why a certain size may work better than another size, why this may look better bigger than smaller, or even bigger than what I did. But this was also part of, gosh, now I forget. It could be Artists for Conservation or the Society of Animal Artists, but I think it may have been Artists for Conservation. And I think it went to, I think the Arizona Sonora Desert Museum. But again, I just love painting fur. I love animals that are also around here. I've seen a lot of coyotes. I've photographed coyotes. And I'll also take a lot of pictures in zoos and in like rehab places. I'm lucky enough to be around a lot of animals between being involved with all these organizations. And but yeah, this is just one that I really enjoyed being able to do because of the fur.
Yeah. I mean, beautiful fur. I also am really struck by, it seems like there's a lot more detail around the face, and you really have the expression in his eyes. I mean, I feel like this coyote had a long day at work and he's headed back home and he needs a rest, I
Yeah.
mean, you have some personality in addition to, the image.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do you think about that? Is that where you
Yeah, I think it
really?
plays a role in like images I'll work off of or ideas I have. Like I have an idea now of like having a peregrine chasing a lot of pigeons, and I've been wanting to work on that for like 3 years. It's just been sitting here, and I'll get, pictures of peregrines, take pictures. I'll get images um of the pigeons, and then I'll sketch out an idea that I have of doing it. But there are certainly obviously personalities in animals. So again, it's the same thing whether it's people or animals. Just people don't know what a coyote, like, it's not comparing it to like a really famous person. But yeah, no, the soul of the animal, the all that personality is obviously extremely important when you're painting. And I've always felt like the watercolor side of it makes that come out in my pieces.
Why is that?
I don't know. I just think for me, it's probably just the way I paint it. Maybe it's just like the style, but it's probably not the best words. It's like the grit, the dirtiness, the detail, like all of that allows me to kind of get that, I feel like. And I'm sure I would maybe get that in oils or acrylic, but um and I know a lot of artists and famous artists who paint incredible in those mediums, but again, for whatever reason, it's just watercolor was just something I felt very close with being able to do this kind of stuff.
Your medium. All right, Jen, what do we have? And please join us again with your questions in the Q&A.
So this painting of a pine barrens tree frog was done for Conserve Wildlife Foundation's the Rare Wildlife Revealed show, which I think I did about, I think 7 or 8 years ago. Worked from a lot of images that they provided me, and that I also took a lot of cool pictures. I like joking around saying I made the excuse of saying I need to see a lot of these animals up close, and photograph them and be around some of the releases or things they were doing. But no, it's just again another cool example of being able to put a lot of color and detail into a painting. And like these paintings are cool because they also educate people on the species and animals are in the state of New Jersey that are threatened and endangered. So it just became a very cool project that's traveled. Sometimes we have some of the paintings left. We raised a lot of money for Conserve Wildlife with them. We just made a trading card set based on these paintings, which is kind of fun, that people can buy, and kids get them. And again, it just educates people on the art side of it, on the watercolor side of it, but also on the actual information on the animals, which is super cool. So this is like a bonus to me, like I said, because that whole show I was able to like band peregrines and take pictures of seals up close and turtles and all different things. And then sometimes you're working with photographers who will get me stuff that I can't take pictures of or shoot. um and then I'll piece things together and have ideas and change up backgrounds and styles and different things. But this is really fun because this really, like I was saying, helps raise money and awareness and education. So it's really, really cool.
That's great. And Jen, again, put that information in the chat so you all are able to go to that. And just one quick question before we go to the question in the Q&A. Did you do all of the cards in the trading card set?
Yeah, it's I believe it's 25 cards based on, I really have now done 27 paintings, but it was 23 of the first 25 I had done. So yeah, the whole set is mine. Those could be bought, I believe, at the Conserve Wildlife Foundation's website. And it's cool too because again, I'm a collector of sports stuff, but a lot of the old vintage cards from the 1800s, early 20th century was a lot of beautiful watercolor paintings of animals and people and different things. So it was sort of kind of trying to accomplish that. And this painting just got selected actually for Artists for Conservation show this year. So we will go to Vancouver, British Columbia, part of their show, and then it will travel to Arizona to that museum again as well, part of their live exhibit.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Thanks.
Jen, what do we have in the Q&A? Thank you all for joining us in the Q&A.
Well, we have two different people that asked basically the same question. Catherine and Anonymous are blown away by your accuracy and realism. Do you do your paintings freehand? Do you sketch? Or do you ever use a projection device?
Yeah, so 90% of it's all freehand, so I don't use any projections. Sometimes I'll do some like grid stuff if I really have to do logos or word stuff, but I'm pretty good at being able to draw things out pretty lifelike pretty quickly. It depends on the scale too. Sometimes the larger scale I'll need especially the help with like the wording and the text kind of stuff. But other than that, like if you were seeing the frog, honestly, it's very lightly sketched and not a massive amount of detail at times in the painting, because most of all of that gets created by the paint. So it's somewhat of a detailed sketch, but not incredibly, because a lot of it will come all from the painting. And I have no problem with people doing any of those methods, whether it helps them and its accuracy, whether it's projecting or grids and things like that. I was taught some of that stuff when I was younger too, but I could sit there and draw a person out right in front of me, or an animal or anything as well. Again, obviously, when I'm doing a lot of detail, I need different images in front of me to see it all and paint, and from color wise. And even today for portraits, I'll do with people. A lot of the times now, even a lot of the big portrait artists I know are really getting a lot of images to paint from. You could work with the person for a little bit, but people have so little time now. It's a lot of image based kind of work. But yeah, the sketches are not too hard for me, in the sense that, again, the watercolor paint does most of the work.
Fabulous. Let's see animals in context. Let's see some landscapes. Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is a fun painting. This is kind of like what I was saying, where I put things together. So it's like, the idea came from, it's a peregrine flying over the George Washington Bridge. I got the idea because the Raptor Trust had a bird named Georgette. She fell from the George Washington Bridge, the upper part, onto the bottom, broke her wing. She was recovered, but they couldn't fix her to fly back in the wild. So she was an education bird at the Raptor Trust. I was so inspired by it, and I love peregrines, that I decided, what would it look like if she was flying over the bridge, or a peregrine was flying over the bridge. So I'll do some sketches, have some ideas, find some photo reference material, and then just put it all together. And that's basically how this came about. This ended up being part of that same Rare Wildlife Reveal show. So yeah, it's kind of a fun one to do. People really, really like this one.
It's visceral, the reaction to it. What's
Thank you. I
next?
appreciate it.
Yeah. What's next, Jen?
Yeah, this is one of my favorites. Yeah, both those. If you go back to that one, yeah, I call it Fox on the Run. So this is another great example of, like, sometimes I'll have paintings of mine that'll be international or in national shows, but they're Hunterdon County. Like, this is based on an image that I took in Hunterdon County, and put the fox in there. And it's obviously I love all the Wyeths. So NC Wyeth, Andrew Wyeth, Jamie Wyeth. If I had an opportunity, these are the paintings I would probably paint more of. This painting I actually have in our living room, and I love selling paintings because I love people enjoying my artwork, obviously, and I have to do it for a living. But this is one of those paintings that I wouldn't even want to sell at this point. It's just very meaningful to me. I love painting snow scenes, or kind of spring kind of landscapes here, where the snow's kind of melting and coming through, and you get that beautiful, like, gray. I love those gray overcast kind of pieces. And obviously, being able to paint trees, that's one of my favorite things to do. With the leaves off of it, they have their own personality, trees. So this is honestly like what I'd probably do more if I had a chance. And this is stuff I first started doing when I was taking all those lessons. I was doing so many landscapes. And I have, oh my God, hundreds of photos that I've taken, and even pictures that I'll take with other friends of mine. That eventually one day, hopefully, I'll get to some of them. I try to mix them in between, projects and things. So
This looks like a mill show image. You know, it's like right out of the mill. We did have a comment on this picture, Jen.
Sorry, couldn't get myself unmuted. Catherine said that looks like the summer kitchen at the, I'm gonna butcher this, Dobozinski farm.
it could be, where it's over by? It's over by the Buffalo Farm, if that's the same place. That's where I took the picture, which is like, I don't even know what town that is, but it's close to me. It's like, but it's basically Route I don't know if that's 523. I'm not sure, but it's heading towards like White House Station area. And so that's where I took that picture many years ago.
Mm, nice. Okay, what else are we looking at, Jen?
Oh, that's a cool one. Yeah. That piece is um that piece was done for actually DNR Greenway Land Trust. And so obviously I'm very honored to be a trustee there. We preserve land throughout the state of New Jersey. Um and that is in the Sourlands. I'm like trying to remember. That's actually from the Sourlands. And again, it just kind of goes back to when I first started painting and doing a lot of landscapes, doing snow pieces, the reflections in the water. But it's meaningful because obviously we preserve so much land in the Sourland Mountains. So again, it's sort of bringing attention to what we do. It's trying to raise money for DNR Greenway and preserving land. Obviously, besides having all these lands preserved, the wildlife that exists on the lands is amazing. This original watercolor, I think, is around like 11 by 17, probably in that kind of range, a little bit smaller.
So, James, you do a lot of community work with your art. I like to an extraordinary degree. How does that work? How do you, because you're an artist who you've got a family that you need to support. So how do you, balance that out, doing work for the community and at the same time doing work for your that gets, feeds your family?
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's hard. I think that I give a lot. I've always felt like um and then also being like a good business person and but also just giving back is a big thing for me. I don't know, I just love seeing people who have a passion. I love helping. I have a hard time saying no. I love being a part of those organizations. They do wonderful things. You meet wonderful people through them. um I love giving back to other artists. I enjoy other artwork, like I was saying. I know some really well-known artists, and I know people who are just starting out. I love to help. I try to donate my time. I donate a lot of my artwork. Um, I've done a lot of um, painting in front of people to see how I do everything, and drawing, and I mean everything. So I don't know. I just think we're on this planet for a reason, to help others and help people, and that's really what it's all about. Um, and if I could do something small, I do it. Sometimes I do things that are really big. I'm very lucky to have some really incredible people over the years buy my work and buy original paintings, and big collectors who've collected my work. I've had a lot of generous people like that in my life. I've made a lot of wonderful connections with people. I think I still hustle today. It's hard owning your own business and being an artist. So I wake up every day and I'm doing so many things, and the easy part honestly is painting, but um, I get a joy out of being a good person and helping people and inspire people. It's pretty simple. And whether that's from the art part of it, the wildlife, or the sports. So I think being a good person certainly comes back to you. And I mean, honestly, it's really sort of that simple to me. So
That's very refreshing in these angry times to hear that. I have the sense too, I could be wrong, but you must be very organized or are smart about getting help, because I think a lot of us try to do everything ourselves, or we feel it's a luxury or an expense that to get help with, say, social media or something like that. So can you share some thoughts about how you make those decisions to get help so that you can do
yeah,
bigger things?
so that's a great question. Well, I'll tell you from a social media standpoint, I have somebody who helps. They do it for me because, and that's like a whole nother discussion and category, because obviously I know it's quite important. Um, I'll be honest, like in all honesty, like I don't like it. I wouldn't do it. I do it because I feel like I have to, and I'm in more of a my sports art's more of that entertaining part of what I do, and like pop art type of world, illustrate, whatever you want to call it. And it's important and people do see it, but in all honesty, I don't like it. But I do have a wonderful person who helps me do it. And I also do a lot of good with it. So I do feel like there are things that are good about it. Like seeing other artwork and being inspired, meeting people, trying to raise awareness, trying to raise money to help people, definitely good. Could also be bad. You could be an artist starting out, or even be a successful artist and see other art and go, I stink. I'm seeing other artists and going, oh my God, like, I tell people all the time, even about me, I'm like, I'm a good artist, but there are people a million times better than me. I promote myself well. I do things that I love. I don't really care what anybody else thinks. I try to do good with it. I've always done what I love. Again, like I paint sports. No one said to me, you're going to make money painting sports. I certainly didn't become an artist to make money. That's for sure. And even for me, it's a struggle. I just was lucky because I grew up in this area of central New Jersey where people had money and love sports, and was able to pick up clients and get a lot of national media attention and national TV shows. But, there are guys that also can get their artwork out there that never could in the past. Like you can reach people all over the world now with social media. That's positive as well. Um, I just wouldn't be able to keep up with it. I feel like it's a lot of pressure and a lot of anxiety, and that's also probably what drives me. I was just honestly talking with my younger son about that, how I'm driven. I use my anxiety and nervousness sometimes in that way of accomplishing things. Like I can wake up anytime I want. No, I wake up early. I get things going. I get my job going. Like if I don't paint, and I have things due, I have to get it done. So, but I do take time to relax. I do take time for my family. I coach my kids. You know, um, I'm just so busy fitting things in, but I do try to balance things. It is hard for artists sometimes to do the business side of it or to be motivated. Um, I'm probably more unique and I do a lot of it myself. I have had agents and certain people who have helped. But overall, I really do a lot of it myself. And a lot of that's because I like being in control of things. I've had people help me that maybe I wasn't too happy with. I did start my business when I was like in high school, which was very smart of me back then to do that. There were companies hiring me to do sports projects, big national, license, big sports projects. And I wasn't in control of stuff. And then when I saw people doing things I didn't like that were representing me in a bad way, I felt like I represent myself the best. But I certainly have over the years have surrounded myself with good people to help me at times. But I still am predominantly doing most of the stuff myself. I tell artists or anyone who wants to be successful, it's very easy. Go out and do what you want to do by reaching out and trying to be as successful. If you want a painting here, go do that. If you want to work with this gallery, keep sending them stuff, keep reaching out, go out and show your work everywhere you can. The more you're visible to people, the more people that see it, all those types of things. So it does take a lot of hustle, a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of showing your stuff off. Um, and so honestly, that's how I did when I was younger, and I still do that today with certain things. So
That's an amazing answer. Before we started, you and Jen were talking about your kids and how you encourage them in the arts, which is really marvelous. A lot of parents who aren't artists want their kids to go into, career path things that are a little more guaranteed. How would you feel, especially with the hustle, and given that you were a young kid with a business in art, how would you feel if your kids went into art?
yeah, truthfully, like you should really do something you love and have a passion for, right? And I always joke around saying if you want to make a lot of money, it's not hard to make money, right? Like I know plenty of people that make millions. You can go into finance, you can go into this, you can go that. Are you loving what you're doing? Maybe, maybe not. So it depends on what your goal in life is. Your goal in life to make a lot of money? Is it to do something you love? Is it to teach? So if my kids want to do anything, whether it's writing or music or art, I'd say go for it. I had guys on my baseball team in college who actually, now that I think about it, two of them were art majors, but one was designing apps and different things. One was doing stuff for Mass Mutual. One was, so like there's all different avenues of the arts that you can go into. It's hard to obviously be like a fine artist and make a living doing it. But my youngest son loves music. My older son loves to write. I encourage all of that. You should, and even artists who talk to me today, you don't have to paint for a living not to be an extraordinary, talented artist and an incredible artist. That sometimes has nothing to do with it. If you're blessed with being able to create things, you should do it for the love of it. You should do it for yourself. You don't need to make a living to do it. It's relaxing for me. It's for me, it's breathing. I would never, and again, this is in me, but I have to draw and paint, I pretty much feel like every day. Now, certainly I go on vacation and I'm not painting or drawing, but I pretty much, I think it was like they talked about Rockwell saying like he painted every day and never took a day off kind of thing. And like literally, like I joke around, I probably sometimes do paint on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day for like an hour or something. So it's in me whether I was going to make money in doing it or not. And so I feel like anyone who has the ability to create should be doing it whenever they get a chance. Sadly, some people are absolutely talented and incredible, but just don't have the opportunity to do it because they're not doing it for a living. But I always tell people, don't stop. Try to do it whenever you can, on the weekend, here and there. So again, artists express yourself and how you feel and in any way you're doing it. So
Marvelous. We have a couple of comments and a final question for you, James.
Okay, back to that one Wyeth-esque painting. Catherine said that's the place on Westwoods Church Road. Janet said, I love your honesty. Thank you. You are a good soul. And finally, June asked, do you ever hold workshops or demos?
So I have done demos before. It is difficult for me. I have been asked by a couple watercolor societies. So over the years, I have done them. Like they've recorded me doing them. It's just in all honesty really hard because as I was explaining, my life is so crazy, but I would actually do it again. I love showing how I do everything. I'm not like trying to keep my secrets. It's like this is how I paint and how I do it. And so I have done them before. I believe I did one for New Jersey. No, not for New Jersey, for Hunterdon Watercolor Society, I think one time. I've done a few of them. And at some of my sports shows, I sketch live. I'll sketch like in books and things. And then one of the wildlife books I did, I would sketch wildlife for people and show them how I draw and do things like that. I used to go into schools a lot and do stuff with kids, and sometimes I still do. But yeah, eventually I probably should do another watercolor workshop. And maybe down the road when I get more free time, I'll do, a little more of that. So
Marvelous. James Fiorentino, thank you so much for your generosity in joining us on Art Talk.
well, thank you so much. I'm honored. I really appreciate it. And like I said, one of the coolest things I've discovered in recent years was the Phillips Mill. So I'm just honored to be a part of those shows. Look forward to them in the future. And hopefully I'll see people out there because I love talking about my art and how I do everything also there. So
We look forward to having you in the show this fall. Yeah. And thanks to all of you in the audience. Please join us next month on July 23rd when we welcome back Joshua Lessard from Michener Art Museum to talk about the Raymond Farm Center for Living Arts and Design, former home of Antonin and Noemi Raymond, who had a powerful impact on modern architecture and design. Jen McHugh is our technical director.
Good night, everyone.
And we're delighted to welcome our new producer, Deanna Botcher, to our team. Thank you so much, Deanna, for all your help with this and coming shows. I'm Laura Womack. Good night, everyone.